The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
It's truly embarrassing. These big Hollywood studios with their broadcast networks and their streaming services and how much they have royally fucked up media. Look, I'm going to just put it to you like this. The digital disruption and media establishments like Disney or Comcast or Warner Brothers Discovery, others like that, Paramount, they have never had an answer for the internet. They never had an answer when social media came in. Okay, 1-2 punch. First it was the internet. Then it became mobile devices, phones and tablets. And then it became social media. Well, actually, no, social media came after that. Internet, social media, and then the portability. When we got all those three things, there has been no answer at all by the big corporate media to do anything about it. They took the risk during COVID because everybody was home and most people didn't want to go out. I said, let's go and get streaming and go. Let's make it happen. We're going to take on Netflix. And what has happened? Netflix has gotten bigger. They can charge as much as they want. They can be proprietary and say, well, we're not going to put anything out of other channels. Like, we're going to keep our content with ourselves. We're not going to put on any of the linear outlet. Our movies? Oh, no. We're going to go ahead and put them on our platform. Fuck the theaters. Netflix has stayed stuck in their guns. I'll give them credit for that. Is the quality of their content better? No, not at all. But I'll give them credit for at least, sticking to what they want to do. They're unapologetic for raising their prices more and more every year, but that's okay. Because now Netflix is just part of the way you navigate. It doesn't matter what shows have come out that are popular now that people are watching. Because if people didn't watch it on Netflix, they don't know what it is. And that's just the way it is right now. They find old shows. They find other stuff that's out there. But Netflix doesn't care about their own content. They'll shut down shows after like a year or whatever or two. You'll get the promotion of other shows that they have on there. Bridgerton is a big thing right now because their season 3 is coming up and they're all talking about that, right? Other than that, hey, all the other streamers, let's at least say what's going on right now so far with what they've done. Okay, so Netflix and Prime Video on their own, yeah, they're doing just fine. Prime Video, they do the smart thing where they have their movies that go to theaters because of MGM. They got the MGM studio, right? And they take those movies, they'll put them out in theaters first, and then put them on their platforms. Some are exclusive to Prime Video. You can do that. Okay. And they're pretty strategic on what movies they decide to go and put on there or what TV shows they want to put on. They got a pretty good setup of shows right now that people will go ahead and go out of their way to watch. Fallout's a big show right now that's doing pretty well. Reacher, Bosch, yeah. The Boys, they're doing just fine with some of those right there. They're doing okay. Apple, yeah, they got Breakfast Club, they got that Palm Royale, they got, they got movies over there. At least their movies are starting to put over on the theaters first before they go and move it back into the platform. So the chance I got to see Napoleon and Killers of the Flower Moon before it went to Apple TV Plus. Oh, that's great. Thank you very much. Hey, at least I got to go and see it in the theaters. Proves to me the quality of the content that's out there. Okay. Then there's the rest that are attached to networks or cable channels or what have you. Disney Plus, Hulu, Paramount Plus, Peacock. It's all these different outlets that are here. Max, they're all attached to something. And it's just regurgitating or just making some content exclusive or just making it on demand there. Because that's what they have to do. But most of that other, that third tier right there, like Netflix is first tier of the top streamers. Then I would say Prime Video and Apple TV is the second tier. And then you got Disney Plus and Max and Paramount and all these others. And they're all going to do something to try to keep themselves ahead and try to find a way to keep everything in one place. They're trying, but now we have the creation of streaming bundles. 3 for each that have just happened now, as we're learning about it as we speak. So you now have Disney Plus. Now not only having Hulu and ESPN, they're going to add HBO Max to create one long bundle. We don't know what the prices are going to be yet, but, get ready for it. Get ready to fork out because you're going to be paying. You'll be paying a plenty. Paying a plenty. And then Comcast is going to bundle Peacock, Netflix, and Apple TV. Now, for the cross-section of both of these bundles, they're pretty good. Netflix and Apple TV out of that mix, that's pretty good out of that. For Hulu, HBO, or Max, and Disney, that's a pretty good bundle. If you had to make me choose, I'd take the Disney, Hulu, HBO bundle, actually. Wouldn't be too bad. Actually, for what it works, that's probably what's going to end up because, on cable, there are still some things I can still watch. As a result of not needing the streaming bundles to buy as a subscription because I already still have cable and Paramount Plus is part of it. So is Max. But, still, it's good to have those two. Like right now, the only thing I don't have is I don't have Apple TV Plus and I don't have Netflix in my access. If I want to watch those shows, I can find a way. We can always find a way. Let's just say it like that, okay? But these changes have been made. And, how do we just jump into this whole story? Because there's so much dumbfoundedness here, a lot of delusion, and just a lot of desperation. 3 Ds right there for you. A lot of desperation right now. First, it was, let's pump the streaming services. Let's get the most out of them. Let's, put a lot of money into content. Let's put as much as we can into getting as many subscribers as possible. Now they're all reaching their threshold. What they can expect is the most you're going to get on their said platforms. And now they started to increase prices. Listen. The Disney Plus bundle has gone up. HBO Max went up. Peacock went up. Netflix went up. They're all going to do that if they haven't done it already. That goes everything else. Come on. Sirius, Spotify, iTunes, all of it. They all keep going up. And some are going to do better than others. I think Netflix is almost toying with the fact of how high can they make their prices without shitting the bed. Because they're getting close. Because the other thing that's a problem here with all these different streaming services and all these other networks is that they are cutting on content. They're not putting out the money for it. So the quality has also gone down. Listen. I watch a lot of shows which would be on Peacock or Paramount Plus, of the network shows. Because my father watches them, and I watch with him. So all the FBIs, all the Law and Orders, except for the main Law and Order. You could tell that because of the strike, the limited amount of content we had, like the only show I've seen all year in 2024 that was real major production value is Shogun. And they're doing 2 more seasons now on FX. That's good. And FX has The Veil. I haven't watched that yet, but I'm pretty sure that's not going to be bad either. But again, FX will put out money. They'll put out a budget for it. I don't know about Netflix so much. But when I look at the FBI shows, yeah, man, I'm seeing some things on there where you could tell, like, the quality, it's not that good. Like, they are cutting, they're budget cutting right now a lot. And there's not enough money for these shows, And then some of the shows they put on board, they were hoping to do well, are not doing well. Like for the CBS side, they had So Help Me Todd that went and tanked. They have Elsbeth that has heard now. I've heard they're trying to get the show dropped already because it's just doing badly and people don't like it. Meanwhile, they have shows like Fire Country and Tracker. They came off pretty new and they're doing pretty well, so that's good for them. But other than that, we're getting up fronts now pretty soon for like new fall seasons. I don't know how much is going to be out there in terms of what new shows. They're going to have some real budgets. They're going to be doing something. Like the networks are not getting much money spent on them. And the cable networks don't have much either. And they're all attached to streamers. And then when it comes down to it, I mean, who's putting out real money to go and do anything? Even the movies that you have on some of these streaming services, they're also, they make Tubi look like, like Academy Award winning stuff. Seriously. Variety did a good way of presenting this all right now. They put out a story, the reinvention of television, streamers dust off some of the old broadcast playbook for a new era. So this is what is being said on that. So they refer first to must-see TV in the late 1990s. That's what we had with ER and Friends and, and Seinfeld and all this other stuff. To think that ER in the late 90s used to get 40% of people watching TV were watching. And that's not even talking about what's going back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? Or Dallas, which I watched all the way to the end. Knowing that show on Friday nights would pull 30 million viewers at its peak. That's a lot. And 30 million views for ER was what they got. I still remember when American Idol back in the early beginning of that show was getting 26 million viewers. It's like NFL football games now. NFL playoff games. Super Bowl is an anomaly. And 110 million people can and watch that game, but it's again only 4 or 5 hour affair. That's it. They go in the story to say that for nearly a decade, the traditions of old-fashioned linear TV have paled in comparison to the big-budget, commercial-free fare offered by Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, Hulu, and others. They're all afraid of spending the money because the money that would always have anyway to put towards this, they would hope they would have towards advertisers. But the problem is the advertising now is so skewed and segmented. It's like how radio turned into different genres of different formats. All these micro formats and all these different micro audiences we have out there that you can't get an audience to really stick to one place because advertisers will put the money out. If you put them on a show, if you could put on a program, whatever length it is or whatever it is, live or taped or whatever, and they can get 30, 40 million people, they will all find their way to go ahead and, like the Super Bowl puts $5.5 million now for a 30-second ad, I think it is for now. And what does linear TV have right now these days? When your highest rated scripted shows or reality shows pull in 7 million, and that's the best you get. And we don't know the numbers of the streamers because they won't provide that to us, especially Netflix. We don't really know. So here we go. At the time also, remember 25 years ago, remember when movie stars used to go get out of movies and go into television? I mean, think about it. That's where let me think, where Kerry Washington came from, was movies, came to TV. When you think about Glenn Close moving from movies to TV, and you think about, Kiefer Sutherland moving to TV, right? They're all movie stars before, and they come into TV and get some pretty big budgets and get some pretty big contracts for themselves. So there's a lot of money in there. High wattage, A-list talent, pricey production values. And the streamers were doing that only a couple of years ago. For nearly a decade, the traditions of old-fashioned linear TV have paled by comparison to what we talked about. And then they go on to say that peak TV generated some of the most best TV in history. Remember, because we had a whole lot of programming that came out at the same time. Again, 500 different projects in a season. Audiences, critics, award shows, and the rest of the industry shifted a lot of their attention to prestige streamer fare, and the linear worlds of broadcast and cable weren't seen as sexy. Streamers now could, put out 6 and 8 episode series orders, meant to draw viewers away from the old guard, get people to sign up for the new, and it worked. But that's the problem. Way too little shows. We were getting to the right number, I think, when we got to, some of the shows we were getting, mid-2010s. Like, I think about Scandal's a good example. They had, their setup of 20 episodes a season. But, you did the idea of okay, get 13 shows or whatever. You do that in the fall. You come back with 8 or 9 or whatever in the spring. You got a fall finale and a spring finale. And it's like you're doing 2 different seasons. It works really well. But we don't have that now. And why some of these shows don't want to do anything like that at all is another problem. But then also what we had shows that, you know what? They probably would have done well if they would have been streaming. Like I think of Empire, probably would have done really well if they were able to go and stream first instead of being on Fox start off. Because remember, they were getting 16 million viewers a week on that show that first season. And it progressively went down. And then, Jesse Smollett, and that's it. But yeah, I mean, it was just, that show went quickly. Revenge is another show on ABC I thought about. It really did like that, and it just dropped quickly. And that was what was going on a lot. But again, trying to go and create the BBC model. 6, 8 episodes, like you'd have on Black Mirror, or you'd have on Luther, or, whatever. It's not enough. And I think you could also find a common ground where it doesn't have to be too much. But 10 episodes, it's also a bit tight. Because remember, I mean, HBO was going at 13 when it came to Sopranos. The first of those, of the limited series that we started getting where, yeah, you get these seasons, but then also to be spread out so much. Like you would really have Absence Makes the Heart Grow Fonder and go forward from there. But going from that extreme from 22 episodes or 24 episodes for a network series down to this is a big change. But we also identify with the fact that the longer seasons on all these other shows on network TV, they do best when they're not procedurals. When they're just procedurals, where it's like, okay, you get a beginning, middle, and an end of the plot in a particular episode. You might have an overlatching arc on some of these shows, but for the most part, it's like you can watch an episode in one sitting, 42 minutes, 45 minutes, and you're done. And at least you'll watch something on the show that like you can always go back to, but you don't have to worry about binging it. You don't have to worry about what happens before or after. You can almost just like watch it in one sitting, stand alone, and that's it. So this week, New York is hosting annual network upfront presentations, and the streamers that had been quick to destroy the old network TV formula are now looking to emulate it. So here's what we got that's going on from that. Also, embracing TV commercials. Now, outlets like Netflix and Amazon's Prime Video are presenting upfronts this week, and the largest networks will make glitzy presentations to advertisers at venues like Radio City Music Hall, Lincoln Center, and Carnegie Hall. Streamers also coming in, doing what the big four networks have done for decades, touting their wares to the advertising buyers who spend billions of dollars in TV spots every year. Now we're going to see that the streamers have offered their ad-supported tiers, which is new this year. And you got to ask yourself, well, I mean, how much are they going to go and, were the streamers going to be able to get for getting this stuff on here? Obviously, people are kind of willing to go and take some of the ad supporting. That's fine. I get that part. But with streaming, the ad buys are going to be, not as thrifty or not as heavy as they might have been on linear TV. So the idea is these big media studios are going back to the previous playbook from the last era. And they're not doing the same as the old cable bundle, but right now we're hearing about the bundles of streaming services 3 at a time now. It's going to get bigger. We know it's going to happen. It was just a matter of time. So we already talked about the triple streamers that are going to be bundled together now. And then at the upfronts, one might notice that some of the new programming the streamers will be showcasing looks a lot like the fare that a few of the broadcast lineups since the dawn of TV. Netflix giving us the greatest rest of all time, Tom Brady, a live special. Amazon now with Thursday Night Football, and now they're getting ready to go ahead and try to get a package of the NBA programming for 2025. And in series, the industry's aggressive cost cutting over the past 2 years is inspiring streamers to take another look at the program formats that were once vestiges of the pre-streaming era. Oh boy. So scripted programming is not where they're going to go with so much. That's not very good to know, but they talked to a network executive that was anonymous, And he says, or he or she says, quote, "It's unfortunate that we've had tech companies come in, create so much disruption, and basically learn a lesson that television learned over the last 50 years, that there was somewhat of a method to the madness. Obviously, broadcast is dying, but it's still a good laboratory. You can still get great shows that will become the next library show. There's been a lot of disruption to basically come back around to reinventing television." But what they're learning about is that, okay, think long-running medical, police, and legal dramas, multi-camera sitcoms sold inexpensively like stage plays, tons of game shows, and consistent timetables for series and finales. Plenty of viewers create familiarity when surfing for viewing options. Netflix's Peter Friedlander, he's head of U.S. and Canada scripted series, argues these types of shows have been on the streamers from the start. Quote, "There's been a really exciting expansion of what you can do on television, and I think that's the result of the streaming era. I think we will always have traditional TV storytelling, but it's been expanded. I know that people are watching medical shows and multicams and as well as other types of content. Balance is important. The big-ticket, Emmy-baiting, high-end shows aren't going away, of course, but they're being balanced with original and not just acquired procedurals and sitcoms that wouldn't look out of place on a broadcaster and can stick around a lot longer than 3 seasons consisting of 8 episodes apiece." So they took the Channing Dungey of Warner Brothers TV Group, saying that there's a little bit of room for everything. There's definitely an appetite for some of the slightly more traditional storytelling, and people are looking at procedurals in the streaming space in ways they weren't before. And so the most watched shows in streaming are your traditional shows. But like I said, like Netflix, it's all of a sudden, oh, we're getting these shows now. And it's like we've been watching these shows, they've been on for years. But now, because it's on Netflix, everybody's paying attention to it. They mentioned, of course, NCIS, Grey's Anatomy, Friends, The Office, and The Resident from Fox. So it was on 6 seasons on Fox. Never watched it. I knew it was on it, but it ran for 6 seasons, and now Netflix, it's the number 1 show on there. And what was the same thing going on before? Suits. Suits all of a sudden comes back, and now they get, all these ads and stuff. They're bringing back Gabriel Macht and Patrick J. Adams and all this stuff, right? And what? And I remember watching all those shows of Suits, and okay, good for them. They're going to bring it back. They're going to do Suits LA. So it prompted, let's get the IP up and running again, because it was doing so well on streaming on Netflix. It's the power of Netflix, by the way. That you got to make mention of that. So those are TV shows. The kind of shows that drove this business since its infancy. Hit programs have staying power with enough episodes to build a library of 100 plus episodes that generations of viewers continue to enjoy. Remember, it's what syndication was. For all these independent stations, for all these stations that were not network affiliates, and they had the prime access hour at 7 o'clock, or they want to run a show at 11 after the news, or against the other network news, network affiliates and their news coverage, right? Or 11 o'clock news, or 10 o'clock news, you would run these kind of shows how they are. And then remember, we also had cable that also decided to go and binge watch with all these shows as well. So they said that as TV's old guard continues to churn out the kind of series that viewers in the U.S. really like to watch. Tracker's a bona fide hit for CBS. They got NCIS, FBI, One Chicago 911, Law and Order franchises all across these networks. They are vibrant. The broadcast networks are leaning more into these kinds of shows. Fox now has a lifeguard action series called Rescue High Surf. NBC has a new Reba McEntire sitcom called Happy's Place. And after Big Bang Theory spawned Young Sheldon, now they're going to have another spinoff called George and Mandy's First Marriage. Back to the world of multi-camera. The funny part is, okay, so all these shows are on broadcast and cable. Because people didn't watch it during its regular run, they catch it in reruns. This is old school, okay? We heard about this all the time. And by the way, when we used to have shows that ran new on broadcast television, 50s, 60s, 70s, they would rerun these shows. And when people never caught them because they didn't get a chance to watch it because they only had 3 channels or 4 channels to watch, or they had cable, something else, they finally had a chance to catch it. Remember, that's what what the most part of streaming is. It's not people really so much binging new content, they're binging old content. Like myself, for the most part, I mean, I have a number of shows that I watched. When it comes to Netflix, I binge watched a lot of old shows. I caught up on Mad Men before the last. See, the thing was, I used to do a thing when all these shows were still new. I would binge watch up until that last season because I wanted to be able to catch that last season because I finally wanted to get into it. I was like, all right, you know what? The last season of this series is going to come up. I'm going to binge watch the whole damn thing all the way up. I did it with Dexter. I did it with Breaking Bad. I did it with Sopranos. I did it with Game of Thrones. I did it with too. Yeah, all those. And it's fun doing that. But it's like, that's where some people are doing that too. And they can also just go back to these shows over and over. Because people are catching these shows on streaming. They don't make a big deal about it. But it's also, if we could hear about the fact that, okay, we get the numbers, the Nielsen ratings for broadcast, for cable. But we don't get any numbers that we can attach to find out what the real audience is, broadcast and streaming for some of these shows. Like, okay, ABC Entertainment, Hulu Originals, and Disney TV Group with Hulu. You know, Hulu has The Rookie and Grey's Anatomy. There are now new generations of fans coming in and consuming massive amounts of the shows, enjoying them because they're timeless. It's the old format. Some of these shows really do well. And one of the things I do, especially when it comes to watching shows, like especially procedurals, like, I mean, I want to watch all these cop shows. Man, I've watched all the cop shows you can think of. Right now, I'm on Streets of San Francisco right now. But I have binge watched all of Barnaby Jones, all of Cannon, all of Dallas, like I said. I mean, I'm trying to think who else I've done like that. But I've taken some shows and I've really run with them. And, you know, if there were quite a few cop shows I still have to watch. Like, most likely after I get done with Streets of San Francisco, I'll probably go to Kojak because I always wanted to watch that show from front to back. And there are other shows I could find, I'm sure, if I go looking around. I was thinking of watching Columbo or like all this Sunday mystery movie stuff. That would be pretty interesting. I don't know. There's a lot of that going on. So they go on to say that streamers have also realized that while long-running procedurals they have acquired from broadcast and cable could keep some of their subscribers happy, it would be smart to make a few of their own as a good way to stop the subscriber churn. Yeah, they want to kind of like replicate the same idea. But I mean, you know, how many people can do what Dick Wolf does? Okay. Or Donald Peter Belisario. Like, think about that. Like, all these shows that are procedurals that have been out there forever, that have run this way. Like, Donald Peter Belisario, remember, that's NCIS, JAG, Magnum PI, among others. You know, it's like there's so much. Stephen J. Cannell, and the level of shows he did with A-Team and Hunter, right? All those. And some we can't really put out there so much because, you know, you got to think about, like, cable probably ran them to the ground on how many times they ran those shows. But yeah, if you were to have these shows on and, you know, you could try to create something like that, that would be smart. You know, and one of the shows I think of that really does that is Yellowstone. Yellowstone's been out there for such a time. And then he did all this, you know, spin-offs of their show, of that series. And why not? And you think about the fact that some of these show writers or some of these creators are getting back into the mix, right? Because that was the thing too. Like, we always thought about like who was behind certain series. And that was the one thing that was going on years ago. Ryan Murphy moving over to Netflix, Shonda Rhimes moving to Netflix, and all those shows that he had brought over, and they just kind of like, it all changed up. I mean, for Shonda Rhimes, I watched Scandal. I watched How to Get Away with Murder. You know, Ryan Murphy, I watched American Horror Story and Scream Queens and, you know, American Crime Story. Sure. So now AR creator John Wells is coming back to procedural dramas. Him and his ER vet R. Scott Gemmell are going to be coming back, and they're going to update for the streaming age. They have a new Max TV series, The Pit. It'll be produced through Warner Brothers Television, and ER alum Nola Wiley is starring in it. It's going to be picked up for 15 episodes by Max. The show's been built to make financial sense with no box office titan demanding millions an episode, no outlandish price tag. The show budgets clocks in at around $5 million an episode, a steal by the standard of recent years. $5 million a year, an episode. Wow. So Max is doing this. They're going to try 15 episodes and see if they can do it over 15 weeks. 15 straight episodes of The Pit. Interesting. So they make the point here from Casey Boyce, chairman of CEO of HBO Max, saying that, okay, it's not $20 million an episode with huge special effects or anything like that. There's ways to produce a show for a budget that are still compelling and interesting and fun. And they're going to plan to do that. Now, there's more coming up in the same vein now. So Chuck Lorre's been doing series for Netflix. They did Disjointed. I remember watching that, and I thought it was doing okay. And they only dropped it after one season. So a multi-camera sitcom. It'll have stand-up comedian Leanne Morgan. The show's getting picked up for 16 episodes. And Netflix already ordered their first ever medical drama called Pulse. They take a lot of time to talk about the Pit and what they're going to be doing with that. And now doing 15 episode runs now of a series in one season. So it's basically just flipping the script. Flipping the script. That's what they're doing right now. And there's been so much talked about what they've been doing here with streaming that, I mean, it's boggling, but I only chose a few stories to go and bring up in here and bring up and talk about. Slash Film talks about how streaming is now just cable, but it's somehow much worse. And they say that, quote, nobody should ever make the mistake of confusing capitalism for innovation, but the streaming era has certainly put to bed any notion that the tech industry is on the cutting edge of new game-changing ideas. Is the next step of evolution of streaming, we're just going to continue to go backwards with an inferior product? Because they're saying it's just become cable. They're saying it's an inferior viewing experience. Viewers at home now have the ability to find thousands upon thousands of titles at their fingertips, making film and TV more accessible now than any other moment in history. But right now, Disney, Warner Brothers Discovery, Comcast would love nothing more than to have customers believe that their respective streaming bundles are the inevitable next step to a brighter and more viewer-friendly experience. But no. For one thing, our media landscape remains just as fractured as ever. Rather than a smorgasbord of options laid out in front of us, the reality is working class families still need to shell out more money for access to increasingly splintered entertainment choices. Which is what cable is. They say that streaming is unfair to artists, refers to the SAG-AFTRA strike and the WGA strike that we've extensively talked about on the program here. They talk about how actors and writers, still struggle with getting residuals, and the cable system, while not with its drawbacks, had at least a tangible method to measure viewership numbers and thus compensate talent down the line for allowing networks to profit off those ratings. And they say that, because these new bundling different platforms together, multiple into one package, you can bet these executives will exploit any and all loopholes in the new labor agreement to avoid paying storytellers what they're worth. Right. They're going to try to consolidate and then just make it even less to pay. So think about it like this now. When you look at the current setup for all of these streaming bundles, yeah, some of these, if you want to do this, maybe you could find them combined with an ad-supported tier. And it's still going to be a lot. But right now they're talking about how you can still buy all these streamers separately. And ad-supported, here's what you're already spending right now so far. So Peacock, already mentioned, that's what I have. The Peacock Premium is going from $5.99 a month to $7.99 a month in July. Netflix, which is basic with ads, is $6.99 a month. And I think, aren't they going up as well? And the Apple TV Plus plan is $9.99 a month. Now, the bundle that they have here is part of Comcast's Stream Saver discount. You need to already subscribe to Xfinity Internet or Xfinity TV. So they're a streaming service. They're cable streaming type service. Digital cable, basically. And then you know that Disney and Warner Bros. Discovery, they're getting a three-way bundle with Max, Disney Plus, and Hulu all combined. And then the new thing we already got coming in now is Venue Sports at VENU, where Disney, Warner Bros. Discovery, and Fox Corporation are forming a joint venture to create a streaming sports bundle. We didn't make so much mention of that, but yeah, that's also being part of this as well. And of course, there's all the deals about how you can go ahead and get a streamer if you're part of this T-Mobile account or Verizon account or what all this stuff, right? There's all that going on too. But everybody's going up and up in price. It's the other problem everybody's dealing with right now anyway. IndieWire also talks about this too. And they talk about the fact that, Disney already with their bundle with Disney, ESPN, and Hulu, they're doing pretty well with what they have. But now they got with Max, they already have done a bundle with two options for consumers to combine its in-house streaming services. And the bundles are about 40% cheaper than subscribing to each service individually. So they got that kind of set in place. AMC Networks has bundles for their smaller services. AMC Plus gets you programming from streamers like Shudder, Acorn TV, and Sundance Now. Verizon is the first to actually give the streaming bundle like this, where they had a 41% reduced rate for Netflix and Max when combined for certain wireless customers. So they say that bundling doesn't actually solve one problem with Paramount Plus, where Showtime, Max, and Disney Plus with a Hulu tile does. Integration. Disney Plus and Max, or Netflix, Peacock, and Apple TV Plus will remain separate services. The content discovery problem remains real under a bundling setup, right? You're still going to have to go through 3 apps or 4 apps or whatever to get to your content. They're all not going to be, they might be bundled in the subscription thing, but you're still having to go and swap between all these different ones. And will you be using all of them? I don't know if you will. But this has started. Not much you can do about it. Now, again, this Comcast Stream Saver will be given at a vastly reduced price. That's what they're saying anyway. We don't know what that price is going to be yet. We'll figure it out soon enough. And everybody wants to keep going back and saying, well, this is what cable was. This is what cable was. Right? They go on to say here from Slate.com, the streaming revolution has brought consumers enormous, seemingly infinite libraries of TV and movies. From the start, it's also been a headache. Nearly 20 years since Netflix introduced the streaming to the masses, legions of media conglomerates followed, all in pursuit of building a better viewing experience. They've all consolidated, and many have failed over the years. They mentioned Quibi. And consumers have been reminded of the simplicity of what they left behind, the humble cable subscription. Cable's still expensive. Like, I started looking at Uverse once again. Of course, they don't want me to be on Uverse anymore, but you know what? If I want the higher tier of AT&T TV or Uverse, I'm still having to pay upwards of $200 a month for everything. But the pricing right now for bundling or just streaming is crazy. Like now, the ad-free version of Netflix to watch Gilmore Girls, $15.49 a month. $15.49 for ad-free. For sports, a Disney bundle for sports and kids movies, $24.99 a month. $25 a month. Max, so you can watch Last Week Tonight or all the episodes of The Sopranos, $15.99. Apple TV Plus, you want to watch Palm Royale or Friday Night Baseball, $9.99. $66 without the premium version of any of these products that get you more content, better resolution, and more screens if your family members aren't under one roof. Yeah, there's all that. And the thing is, it still comes down to the fact that we have so much available for free. Listen, you got Tubi, you got Pluto TV, which is fantastic. Plus, Roku has their set of channels. And all these other channels are also available in like Samsung TVs and stuff like that. Like, I mean, you know, if you want to watch a Sunny TV, you got shows that you can watch all over the board and you're just binge watching all over the place. We don't have to go into streaming. But it's amazing that people will still go ahead and go out of their way to go and buy for these streaming services and asking yourself, like, how much are they really offering to make you go ahead and buy? I mean, when I think about like what I have in the streaming that I buy, like, I mean, we have a combined thing. My older brother, he has the Disney Hulu ESPN bundle, and we work off of that with him. But in return, I have Amazon Prime. Amazon Prime, Peacock, as I'm a WWE fan, so I have to watch Peacock. And, you know, I'm saying to myself, and through our cable, I have Stars and Paramount Plus and Max. So, like, we are really well set. And I have to think about the fact that, yeah, even though we're paying, $190 a month for the U450 plan from Uverse, okay, at least we're saying to ourselves, you know what? We are getting, you know, all the streaming services like Max and Paramount Plus now. Like, that's still significant. Max $15.99, Paramount Plus $9.99. That's, again, $25 worth of services right there that are access to us on top of everything else. So, I mean, that's a consideration we have to think about. Now, while all these companies are doing what they can, we can also talk about what the big executives of these said companies are saying. Bob Iger talked about how linear TV can be managed to decline with dramatically lower content spend, right? So they can still do it by spending less money. The key, he says, is to basically reduce pretty dramatically our investment in content. Invest in some, then manage the traditional platforms, networks, and streaming platforms seamlessly. So you've got the same executives managing both. The goal is to drive bottom line growth. So if you put something on ABC and it goes on Hulu pretty quickly, in some cases it's simultaneous. And what we're getting is an unduplicated audience. We're basically aggregating a greater audience and we're amortizing costs. And we're going to continue to see erosion for those businesses, but we're going to continue to drive profitability because we're managing our costs so effectively. And that'll play an important role. This is the delusion of executives here thinking, well, you know, the biggest thing I still read about in that story is, oh, well, all right. Then we're just going to keep cutting on content. That's what we're going to do instead. Is that a good idea? And then they go on, and there's a story I want to take up real quick. When it comes to, from Wall Street Journal, they put out a story mentioning what's on TV for many Americans. It's now YouTube. So they found out from, you know, the information they have here, nearly 10% of the time Americans spent in front of their TV screens last month was on YouTube. You're watching YouTube on TV, on their TV platforms. And you know what? I do it all the time. Listen, that Google Cast, to put that up on your TV so damn quick. Yeah, YouTube is great. It is one of the best. To automatically put that up there. Like, I wish Twitter would have that too, because some of their programming is like long form, and that would be nice to put that there too. But Disney now has garnered 11.5% of total TV viewing time in the U.S. last month. Nielsen put out these stats recently to capture the full audience that entertainment companies reach across cable, broadcast, and streaming on people's TV sets. YouTube's growing share illustrates the power shift into which the way entertainment industry is changing. So YouTube is standing toe-to-toe with companies that own TV networks and streaming services. Traditional media and streaming behemoths collectively spend over $100 billion on programming a year, according to Ampere analysis. Legacy players like Warner Bros. Discovery, Paramount Global are dealing with the declining reach of their traditional TV networks as more Americans cut the cord, and they're also spending heavily on slates of original content and sports programming to retain the viewers they still have and anchor their nascent streaming services. They also found out in the YouTube stats that 150 million people, more than 40% of the population, watch YouTube on connected TV screens each month, and it's benefited from new features that let viewers shop or chat with one another while watching big events. So last month's Coachella Valley Music and Arts Festival was one of those examples. Now, traditional media companies have to pay hefty sums up front for programming that they hope will bring in large amounts of subscription and advertising revenue. YouTube incentivizes creation of content by sharing 55% of revenue from ads that run in creators' long-form content, 45% of revenue from ads on their short-form videos. Yeah, they got all these content creators who are taken care of independently. And, you know, with the quality of content that's on these different platforms, on YouTube on here anyway, it's gotten better and better. They all do better. I mean, hell, I've got maybe my content's better on there, right? YouTube topped Netflix as the streamer with the most TV time in early 2023, according to Nielsen. And Netflix attracts the sixth largest share of U.S. TV time in April after Disney, YouTube, NBC Universal, Paramount, and Warner Brothers. That's a big deal. YouTube is still beating all these people in terms of eyes watching content. On their app, on their desktops, on their TV screens. Screen sharing, just like that. They have a good thing going. It's seamless, it's simple, it's great. And of course, YouTube does have like their own version of you know, they have their own cable-like service. They also have, you know, additional things you can be doing to go ahead and buy with them so you can get more out of what you're getting, right? There's also that as well. And then one of the stories I saw here that's being talked about is social media, because we know now that the social media platforms are trying to also monetize themselves as well, because advertising is not enough either. And BBC talks about how is social media worth paying for. So right now you can go subscribe to different channels on X, formerly Twitter. And now you have a deal where Instagram is going to start charging content creators again, you know, to go and use the platform and get the kind of coverage they want to get. Recently, for Facebook and Instagram in Europe, they have an ad-free subscription model. $14 a month. Oof. On mobile devices. Snapchat now has Snapchat Plus. Also has an ad-free option that's also rolling out. Already has 1 million subscribers in the first few weeks of launch in June 2022. YouTube has their premium service, offers ad-free streaming, has 100 million users right now. There's a lot of that going right now, where social media also, there's always a price point with all this here. But you can still find free content if you really want it. But it's amazing how many people will go ahead and go out of their way to go ahead and do that anyway. Another story that's been very prominent right now that I could have talked about this week, but streaming just was such a hot topic, was the news industry. And there's a lot of these political outlets who are also talking about the news industry needs to be changed because there's a collapse to it. So thehill.com, they talk about the fact that, you know, all these different news outlets. Well, by the way, 4 months ago, and we had all these different jobs being laid off, all these different jobs being, you know, taken away, because all these different publications, newspapers, magazines, they have no way to sustain themselves. Northwestern's local news initiative, Northwestern University, they have a recent study that they said now in the last 2 decades, a third of the U.S. newspapers have closed down altogether, which means 43,000 jobs lost at all levels of journalism in the U.S. So news innovators in the last couple of decades have been trying everything to go ahead and reinvent themselves. They say it's well past time to recognize that something more fundamental needs to change, and that journalism should be protected against the extremes of market unpredictability, as many of their sectors already are. So this is the part where I always keep hearing the same thing. Oh, the journalism needs to be treated, you know, as critical infrastructure. These are also the same kind of people that say, well, we need to get the tech companies to start paying for the advertising revenue that we are losing because of them, because they're putting our stories on their search results, right? Or on their platforms. And thehill.com, they say that media organizations, like local media organizations, should be treated more like libraries than limited liability companies. So make news organizations get a tax credit for hiring local journalists. The main challenge for media organizations today is collecting and reporting the news with adequate reporting staff. The supply of potential new reporters is strong, but budget constraints mean newsrooms' ability to hire is low. A tax credit. Oh, so we need policymakers to do this? This is the part where, I'm sorry, media doesn't need to be controlled by government. We don't need government intervention here. I disagree. They go on to say here that lawmakers should take a hard look at media ownership, make moves to encourage hedge funds and private equity firms to unwind their take on media companies. Well, for radio, I'd love that. That would be smart. Hedge funds and other financial firms control half of the daily newspapers in the United States. Same thing as radio. They often buy outlets and immediately move to drastically slash their newsroom staff. Listen, just break up those hedge funds from the control they have of media companies. Again, deregulation. And how many times have we talked about media deregulation on this program? And what happened? Again, in the last 50 years we've had this, it has not gotten any better. You know, it's not. The fact that it took newspapers and magazines a little bit longer than normal is not surprising. But it was going to get there eventually. So they think they can go and do that. Okay, so give tax credits for more journalism, for more local journalists being hired. All right. And the other part is to start basically breaking up the big companies. Yeah, it would be nice, but I don't think they're going to be doing that. You're expecting Washington, D.C. to do that? No. Nothing about that. Nothing about that at all. Sorry. One last story from radio. A new study came out about what women want on radio and suggestions on what to do about it. This is from last week, this is earlier this week, but I'm going to bring this up. Allen Burns and Associates consultants, they had their What Women Want series, stressing the importance of AM/FM radio to women, but also revealing what, when it comes to programming, suggesting how to fix a few things, especially for the younger end of the demographic. So they surveyed 1,000 women aged 15 to 64 in September and October 2023. And here's what they have. Nearly 46% say they love their favorite AM/FM station, with a love second to just their mobile phone, 51%, and ahead of Amazon, 43%, and Netflix, 40%. AM/FM radio is not just far and away women's first choice on weekday mornings. 44% say they listen Monday through Friday, 5 to 8 a.m., and then that's followed along with TV at 28%, social media at 27%, online music streaming services at 25%, online video 14%. Women prefer not just the morning drive, but throughout the day. Companionship, local news and information, humor, inspiring conversations, and interesting stories are somewhat important by the largest share of respondents. And outside of mornings, a significant share of women still want entertaining talk or chat alongside music, while for call-in shows. And that they would love to be able to listen to more funny and unusual stories, in addition to entertainment, pop culture topics, and news current events, with women under 35 leaning towards the former, 35 plus the latter. We're going to leave it there. That's the show for tonight. I'm happy to go and say that I found a new microphone that I bought on Amazon, a remote microphone that I go and plug into my phone, so I could do some more remote recording, so I can have something a little bit better to work with when I go out on the road and want to go and do some exercise, or I got some other free time, and I can go ahead and do some other recordings. I can do that with this, and I hope to be doing more. And I'm going to prompt right now that hopefully some of you will go and consider joining the supporters club of the Broadcasters Podcast. You can find premium episodes in the subscribers section of my website, kingofpodcasts.com. And if you see a Broadcasters Podcast episode that is premium, that is behind the supporters club, okay, you can go ahead and access those episodes, or you can just do a donation to the cause for this program, for what I do, at a low price of $2 a month. That's it. Less than a cup of coffee. That's all I ask. So if you consider it, just go ahead and look for the episodes that I have of previous premium episodes that you can find exclusively through the supporters club, kingofpodcasts.com. You can find those episodes now on the website. Any Broadcasters Podcast episode, or any of the other episodes I have up there anyway, in the premium section, you can click through those, then click through and get to the episode, put down $2 a month, and you have the access. And you'll have access for constant content that I'll have up there, because I will put regular content up there on a regular basis of premium content that you'll be able to go and access anytime you want. So I hope you'll consider that and think about it. I'd really appreciate it if you would consider it. So I hope you do. And as for what's going on now with all this here, the mistakes, the issues that streaming are going through right now, shame on them for what they did. Deciding to go and cut on content, deciding to go ahead and, give up on the linear broadcast channels. They could have kept things the way it was. Cutting on the amount of episodes. Now they're trying to go ahead and rewrite the script and go back and just do it the other way around. Flip the script. Is it going to work? I don't know. Come back for another Broadcasters Podcast. Remember that content is king and the control of your content is in your hands.